Good morning Year 2 and welcome to our first English lesson of the week. Today it is Monday the 18th of January and in English today we are going to be learning all about commas. We are going to learn what commas are and how we use them in our writing. And we're going to use commas to separate items in a list. So, what is a comma? This is what a comma looks like. It is a type of punctuation and it tells us to take a short pause when we are reading. However, the pause is not as long as a full stop. Can you, on a piece of paper, practice how to draw a full stop? I have got my line here and we must remember when we are writing a comma that it sits on the line. So I'm going to practice here. I'm going to do like a little dot, like a full stop, and put the tail just below the line. See if you can have a go. We're going to be needing to use our commas today in our work. So, a comma can be used to change the meaning of a sentence or to separate items in a list. And today we are going to learn how to separate things that are in a list. So let's look at a sentence together. The fruit bowl has oranges and bananas and pears and kiwis and apples in it. Now, what is wrong with using the word and in between each item in the list? Can you talk with your grown-up what you think is wrong about that sentence? So, in this sentence, we can see that and has been used lots of times. So that means it has been overused, it is repetitive, and it makes the sentence too long. So we're going to have a look at how we can make this sentence better. So what we need to do is we have got to take out the ands. So let's see if by taking out the ands, our sentence has been improved. The fruit bowl has oranges, bananas, pears, kiwis, apples in it. However, we must always leave one and in the sentence. Can you talk with your grown-up? Where do you think that one and needs to go in this sentence? And let's see where it goes. So, when we are writing a list in a sentence, we need to use and in between the last two items in our list. So let's read it now. The fruit bowl has oranges, bananas, pears, kiwis and apples in it. So we must always remember and goes in between the last two items in our list. Now, we've figured out where and goes, but there is still something missing. Let's see what we need to do now. We need to improve our sentence by putting in commas, because at the minute it's a bit confusing, all these words sitting next to each other. So, where do the commas need to go? They have got to go in between the items in the list. And remember that when I do my comma, it must sit on the line. So, the fruit bowl has oranges, bananas, pears, kiwis and apples in it. And then we always must remember that and goes in between the last two items. We don't put a comma there. Let's have a look at some other examples. The cockerel's feathers were brown, green, orange, blue. Can you talk with your grown-up what that sentence needs to have in it? So let's say the sentence together. The cockerel's feathers were brown, green, orange and blue. So I'm going to write this sentence out. The cockerel's feathers were brown. Now this is where my list starts, so I need a comma here. The cockerel's feathers were brown, green, orange, but I've got to my last two items in the list. Tell your grown-up, does a comma go in between these last two items or and? Well done, children. We need to use and in between our last two items. And blue. Don't forget my full stop. Let's read it now to see if we have improved that sentence. The cockerel's feathers were brown, green, orange and blue. Don't forget, children, when you read your sentence back, you must pause at your commas. Let's try this one. Can you read that sentence to your grown-up? The crowd were cheering, shouting, singing. Can you tell your grown-up the new sentence we need to write? Let's have a go together. The crowd were cheering. Now this is where my list starts, so I need to use a comma. The crowd were cheering, shouting, and this is the last two items in my list. Tell your grown-up, do we need a comma or the conjunction and? Well done, children. We must use and in between our last two items in our list. The crowd were cheering, shouting and singing. Don't forget to read it back, pausing at any commas. The crowd were cheering, shouting and singing. Now, we've got some points, children, that we need to avoid, things that we shouldn't do. So, when we are writing our commas in our list, we must never put a comma in front of the first thing in our list. We must always put the comma after. Okay, so this red comma here is showing us what not to do. And we must never put a comma at the end of our two items. So remember, it's always and. We don't put both, and it is not a comma. Okay, children, so now we know all about commas, we know what they look like, and we know how to use them in our sentences. So now it is going to be your turn to have a go at adding in commas or correcting sentences to make them better. Let's have a look at the first one together. This is the sheet that we are going to be using today. So, if you can't print this off, children, then it will be really good practice to write out the sentences on a piece of paper. So, for the first part of our English activity, it says that we have got to put the commas in the correct place in the sentence, because at the moment, the sentence doesn't have any in. So, you need to read the sentence out loud so you can hear where the commas need to go. For my holiday, I need a towel, shorts, a hat and goggles. So I've already been given and in between the last two items in my list. So my list starts here at towel. Now I'm going to remember that thing to avoid. I don't put a comma before the first item in my list. For my holiday, I need a towel, and I've remembered to sit my comma on the line. For my holiday, I need a towel, shorts, a hat and goggles. Can you add the commas into the sentences below? After you've done that, the next part of our activity is we have got to write out each sentence. So this is really good practice for my handwriting. So I'm going to start on the first sentence here. And I have got to replace all the ands with some commas. So the sentence says, the bike is new and red and shiny and fast. Well, at the minute, and is being used far too much, and it is making the sentence too long. So I know I need to replace some of the ands in that sentence, but remember, I must always leave an and in between the last two items in my list. So, number 1, I'm going to copy the sentence, making sure I'm copying the spelling correctly. Capital letter touches the top black line. The bike is new. This is where my list starts. So I know I can't use and over and over again. So I need to use some commas. The bike is new. Red. Shiny. And fast. Full stop. I'm now going to read my sentence back, pausing at the commas. The bike is new, red, shiny and fast. I'm then going to move on to number 2. So again, remember to read out the sentence and see where the commas need to go. Fruit is healthy and sweet and colourful and tasty. Right, children, I'm going to leave it there because now it is your turn to complete the rest of the sentences. So remember to copy out each sentence, replacing the ands for commas. Once you have finished your work, children, remember to email it over to me, Miss Ford and Miss McGrath, and we can't wait to see your work all on commas. Bye for now.